Hi everyone, my name is Beth. I'm a librarian at the Weinberg Library in Mequon, and today I'm going to take you through an introduction to Windows 10. So Windows 10 is the most recent version of the Windows operating system, which is the software that runs a lot of computers, but not all of them. Most laptops and desktops that you would buy come with Windows 10, so I want to take you today through an introduction to the basics, how it works, where you can expect to find it, and some of the settings and other options that you have to make it work the way that you want it to. So I mentioned that Windows 10 comes installed on computers, and there are two different kinds of computers that you'll generally find it on. One is the desktop, which looks a little bit like this. You have your computer tower right here. You've got a mouse, which lets you move your cursor on the screen and click on things and open programs and stuff like that. There's a monitor where you can see what you're doing, and then a keyboard where you can type. Then there are laptops, and they are pretty much self-contained as opposed to desktops, which have all these different parts separate. Laptops come with the screen and the keyboard built in. They do not usually come with mice, but you can buy a mouse and plug it into the laptop if you prefer using a mouse. Instead, they use a trackpad, which is this flat surface here. They work really similarly to mice, but I know some folks find them a little confusing. So again, if you would rather use a mouse, you can do that even if you have a laptop. Speaking of the mouse, generally mice look like this. They have two buttons on the top, a left button and a right button, and typically they will also have a little scroll wheel in the middle. When you navigate around your computer, generally if you want to open something or choose an option in a menu or something else, you're going to push the left button, which is left clicking, but you'll mostly hear it referred to as just clicking because that's sort of the standard motion on a mouse. So clicking on the left button, pushing down the left button will let you open programs and things like that, and I will show you what that looks like in a moment. Right clicking on something, so putting your cursor over something and pushing the right button down, will open up extra menus and extra options that you can use in various places on your computer. You can also click and drag things. So if you click and hold down the left button and then move your mouse around the screen, you will be able to highlight multiple things at once. Again, I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And then I mentioned this scroll wheel in the middle. So if you not click the scroll wheel, but just kind of gently nudge it up and down, you can scroll up and down on pages or within Word documents or other things on your computer where you can't see everything at a glance. So that is what that center button is for. Now that I've talked about what the mouse looks like, let's actually see some of it in action. So I mentioned left clicking on something will select an option or open something. For example, on my computer, I have my calculator pinned to the taskbar at the bottom of the screen. If I left click on it, it opens the calculator. And then I can click on the buttons to input various equations and do things with the calculator. Or I can click on the little X in the top right corner to close it. So that is left clicking. Right clicking will open up extra menus. So if I right click in the middle of the screen, I get some extra things here. I can make a new folder. I can go into my settings. I can personalize this screen, which is the desktop, various things like that. I should also mention double clicking. So if you double click, by which I mean tap the left button on the mouse as fast as you can, that will open up things like shortcuts and other options on the computer. So for example, I have my recycling bin up here in the top left corner of my screen. If I double click on it, it'll open up and I can see what's in it, which right now is nothing. And then I mentioned clicking and dragging. So if I click and hold down the left button and then start to pull it up, you see this blue box that opens up. This is a highlighting box. So if I pull it all the way up here to where these two icons are, now it has highlighted them, and then I can click and drag and move them around. I can right click on them and say rename or open or properties, various options. So that is what the mouse does. When you first turn on a Windows computer, you are going to be faced with your desktop, which is this screen right here. This whole expanse can be personalized in any way that you want, and I'll talk about how to do that exactly in a moment. But you'll also see various icons on the desktop that let you access programs at a glance. So again, I mentioned the recycle bin. The recycle bin is always here. This is where things go when you delete them. So if you go through and delete a bunch of photos on your computer, they wind up in the recycling bin. If you double click on it, You can see what's in it. If there's something in it that you want to bring back and put back where it was before, if you've deleted it by accident, you can click on it and then you can restore the selected items by clicking on this button up here, which would normally be green if I had actually chosen anything to restore. You should go through and empty your recycling bin occasionally, because anytime you delete something, it doesn't technically disappear. It just winds up in the recycling bin. So if you're trying to get more space on your computer, you're not doing yourself any favors unless you're going in and actually emptying the recycling bin, which you do by right-clicking on it and then saying empty recycle bin, which I won't do right now because I don't have anything in it. So that's the desktop. Down here at the bottom of the screen is what's called the taskbar, this dark bar at the bottom of the screen. Just like with the desktop, you can pin things to this taskbar. Like I have my internet browser, Google Chrome, I have Microsoft Word, Excel, Outlook, a library program called Polaris, my calculator, and I can just click on these and they will open up right away. And this taskbar always stays visible. So even if I have Google Chrome open, I still have my taskbar down here. Whereas you'll see, now that I've opened up Google Chrome, the desktop is covered up. So if I'm in Google Chrome and I want to go into Microsoft Word or I want to go into Excel, all I have to do is come down here and click on Excel, and there it is. So that's the benefit of the taskbar. Over here on the right is a quick access menu. So moving from right to left, we have a button way over here in the bottom corner of the screen where if I click on it, it will jump me down to the desktop right away. So if I'm in Google Chrome, again as an example, and I go down here and click in this bottom right corner, now I'm back at the desktop. So if there was something on the desktop that I wanted to access quickly, I could get to it from there. Then we have this little speech bubble, which is a notification menu. So if I click on it, this is where Windows will give me various messages that I need to see. So I have Outlook telling me that I have some emails. I have the Dell Command Center telling me there are some updates that I could run, things like that. That is what this speech bubble is. And if I click on any of these notifications, I can go ahead and follow through on what it's telling me to do. I can look at the email. I can see more details generally. Then we have a clock with a calendar, and if I click on it, I can see more details. So I can scroll through and see into the future, see into the past, and I can see the exact date and what time it is. This little speaker icon is the volume button, which if I open it, right now the little speaker icon here is marked with an X. That means that it's muted. So even though my volume is set to 43, I have it muted. So if anything needs to play audio, I won't be able to hear it. To take it off of mute, I would just click on this button again. And now that I have these curved lines, I know that I would be able to hear anything that I needed to play. I'm going to mute it again though, because we don't want that making noise while we're working. And then this little computer icon is my network icon. This is the icon that tells me whether or not I'm connected to the internet. If this icon looked like a little globe, like a little gray version of the Earth, that would mean that I wasn't connected to the internet at all. Because it looks like a computer with a cord coming out of it, that means that I'm connected directly to a modem or some other internet source with a wire, an actual cable, that runs from my computer to that source. If this icon looked like 3 white lines, kind of like we saw with the speaker, so kind of like these lines here, that would mean that I'm connected via Wi-Fi. So I have a wireless connection to the internet that's going over the air to some internet provider in the area. When it comes to using Wi-Fi, the way to choose what Wi-Fi network you're connected to, like if you're traveling with your laptop and you're stuck at the airport and you need to get online, if you want to connect to the airport's Wi-Fi, you would click on what would look like a little globe down here because you wouldn't be connected. And then you'd see a list of all the Wi-Fi networks that would be available to you in that location. Then if you clicked on one of those networks, if there was a password required, you'd be asked to put it in, but if not, you would be connected. Generally speaking, when you're connecting to Wi-Fi outside of your home, if the connection doesn't have a password, you don't want to be doing anything with it that would be private. So if you're sitting in a coffee shop and their Wi-Fi doesn't have a password, I wouldn't go look at your bank account. I wouldn't order anything online, especially if you have to be putting in a credit card number. Anything you wouldn't want someone looking over your shoulder while you do, you shouldn't do on a Wi-Fi network without a password, because that password keeps the network secure and stops people from being able to see what you're doing. There are other icons down here in the taskbar, but they're going to depend on what software you have installed on your computer. So you might see an icon for your printer, you might see an icon for your antivirus program if you have something like Norton. So I'm not going to talk about mine specifically because I imagine they'll be different for you. But I encourage you to click on them and see what they are and see what they do, because you may be able to access something you didn't realize you could get to down here. That's the taskbar. Now let's talk about the Start menu, which you get to by clicking on the little Windows icon in this bottom left corner. So the Start menu, just like the taskbar, is always accessible down here no matter what else you're doing. And when you click on it, you get an alphabetical list of all of the apps that you have installed on your computer. Now, throughout this presentation, I'm going to use the word app and program interchangeably. They mean the same thing. They're just any piece of software, anything that does something for you on the computer. So the Mail app is a program that lets you check your email. The messaging app is a program that lets you send messages to other people, things like that. You can also pin things to the Start menu just like you can with the taskbar, and then you'll be able to access them easily. And again, I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. Over here on the left, we have some extra options. So this little face icon is your account icon, which if you click on it, you can change your account settings, and you can sign out or you can switch user. And these options are only relevant if you actually have multiple accounts assigned to your computer. So as part of Windows 10, you can have a single computer in your household, but have separate accounts for each person who uses the computer. So if you want your desktop to look one way, but your husband wants it to look different, you could have separate accounts, and then he can make his look the way he wants, and you can make yours look the way you want. And there are other features too that you can customize and personalize, but that is probably the biggest one. It's just the look and feel. So if you were signed in, and then your husband came along and said, oh, I need to use the computer now, you could say sign out, and then he would log into his account, and he could use it from there. At the bottom is our power button, which if I click on it, you can put the computer to sleep, which turns the screen off. You can shut it down, which closes the whole computer and turns it off completely, or you can restart it, which will turn it off and then back on again. And then finally, we have this little gear icon, which is the settings menu. And I'm actually going to go in there right now. So the settings menu is where you can go to take total control over your computer, how it works, and how it functions. If there's something specific you're looking for, you can type it into this Find a Settings search bar up at the top of the screen. Otherwise, you can go through any of these categories to see your various options. So under System, for example, when I open it up, it takes me automatically to Display. I can click on any of these other options on the left to toggle between other options. So under Display, I can change the scale and the size of the screen. Under Sound, I can unmute the volume or raise or lower the volume. Under Power and Sleep, I can say after 30 minutes, the screen should turn itself off. After 30 minutes, the PC should go to sleep, or I can lengthen or shorten that time. These features are especially useful if you're using a laptop and you are worried about your battery life. The faster your screen goes to sleep, the faster your computer goes to sleep, the longer your battery will last. And then if I click the back button up here, I can get back to the main settings menu. This personalization category is where you'll go to change how your computer looks. So I mentioned that you can make your desktop look different. You can upload background pictures. You can choose from pictures that Windows has created. You can do colors. You can do a slideshow of different photos. You can change the colors associated with your screen. So your taskbar will change color and your start menu will change color. And you can change what your lock screen looks like. If you set up your Windows account so that there's a password required when you first turn the computer on, you can decide what you want to see on that password screen. A photo, something else, your calendar, your mail, your Skype. Next up is the apps section of the settings. And that is where you can see, again, just like in the start menu, a full list of all of the apps on your computer. You can modify them from here. You can uninstall them from here if you click on them. So I have this Adobe Acrobat. You can uninstall it completely if you don't need it anymore. Next up is the accounts category. I mentioned before that you can have multiple accounts on your computer, and this is where you would go in to change the information associated with one account or the other. So you can upload a picture of yourself, you can change your name, you can assign different sign-in options, like if you want to have a password or if you want to require a sign-in anytime you come back to your computer. And you can also assign email and other accounts to this account so that it will remember those credentials and log you in automatically to various features. Ease of access category is where you can find accessibility features. So you can make the text on everything in the computer bigger. You can make everything bigger. You can change how your cursor looks and make it larger. You can go that big, which is really pretty nice. You can also change the cursor thickness in things like Microsoft Word. So now if I went into Word and tried to type, the cursor would be this big, so it would be much, much easier to see. There's a magnifier here. There's also a high contrast feature and a narrator. The narrator is a screen reader, so it will talk to you and read whatever you are looking at on the screen. You can change what it sounds like, how quickly it speaks, its pitch, its volume, and a bunch of different other features. And then finally, I want to talk about the privacy section. So the thing about Windows 10 is that Windows used to subscribe to a business model where they made their money by selling computers, and specifically by forcing people to roll over to a new operating system every few years. Nowadays, what they say they're going to do instead is just have one operating system, Windows 10, and they're going to make their money by using your data for advertising. This privacy section is where you take control of how much of your data they are allowed to use. So if you don't mind if they track, how many times you open a particular app during a particular day, you probably don't have to do anything in here. But if you do mind, if it makes you feel a little weird, you can come in here and tell them, stop tracking my app launches, because I don't want you to improve my start and search results. I just want you to not be watching what I'm doing. You can tell them to let certain apps use an advertising ID for you, which will mean that you'll start seeing advertisements for similar apps in your start menu and other places. You can say, please do or please don't show me suggested content when I open my settings. Things like that. There's a lot of different options in here. If you're curious about any of them, you can click Learn More over here on the right, and you'll see more information about each setting. You can also Google it. You can Google Windows privacy options and find a wealth of information. But this is where all of these options are kept, and I would really encourage you to go through and read everything in here, including under these Windows permissions sections, like speech and inking and typing and everything, and make sure that everything is set up in a way that makes you comfortable, at least as comfortable as you can be. And before I talked about the settings, I mentioned that the desktop is sort of the basic unit of the computer. This is where you land anytime you log in. But the other basic unit is actually Windows. So everything you do on the Windows operating system happens in a window. If you open Microsoft Word, it opens in a window. If you open Google Chrome, it opens in a window. And you have options for how these windows display themselves and how you move around inside these windows. So way back at the beginning, I mentioned that most mice have a scroll wheel in the middle of the top of the mouse between the left and right buttons. If you pull that scroll wheel up and down on a page like this, where you can't see everything at a glance right away, you can scroll down the page and see other things listed near the bottom. You can also do that by using the scroll bar over here on the right side of the screen. So this gray box, if I click and hold down on it, I can pull it down and up and then stop and let go to see other things. And then finally, you can use the arrows at the top and bottom of the scroll bar to go up and down a little more precisely. When you open more than one program at a time, so I have Google Chrome and Microsoft Word open now, they will layer on top of each other. So right now, Google Chrome is front and center. If I wanted to make it go away just for a second so that I can see Microsoft Word, I could click on this line up near the top of the screen to minimize this window and go down to Microsoft Word. If I wanted to get it back, I could go down to the taskbar and click on Google Chrome, and now it's come back. If I have multiple windows of Google Chrome open and I want to switch between them, I would click on Google Chrome and then choose one of the windows from right down here. So if I click on this, now I'm here. And then from here, just like before, I can minimize it, go back to the other Google Chrome, or click on Microsoft Word to get over there. So you can navigate around in various windows and have various things open at the same time. You can also resize your windows. So right now my Microsoft Word window is taking up the entire screen. If I wanted to shrink it down and put it over to one side, I could click on these nested squares up at the top. That makes it smaller. And then I can click and hold down on the blue bar at the top of the screen and drag it over. I'm going to nest it right up here in this top corner. And then I can place my cursor right at the edge of the window, click and drag to make it narrower, and then at the bottom of the window, click and drag to make it longer. And now it's filling up this half of the screen. And then if I go down to Google Chrome, again, make it smaller by clicking on this nested square. It snapped to the top left corner. That's good. I'm going to pull it down and pull it over. And now I can work on both things at once. So if I was reading something and I wanted to be taking notes in Microsoft Word, I can do that easily now that I have these windows arranged the way I want them. If I don't need a window open anymore, if I'm done working on Microsoft Word, I can click on the X in the top right corner to close it. And now that I've done that, if I wanted to make Google Chrome big again and fill the screen, now that I'm not using Microsoft Word and I don't need it to be smaller, I could come back up here, click on this square, and we're back. Now, as long as we're here in Google Chrome, I should talk some more about the internet. So, I mentioned before that to get on the internet, you need to have an internet connection. You need to be connected to either a modem using an actual cable or to Wi-Fi using a wireless internet connection. As long as you're connected, you can then use what's called a web browser to get around the internet and do things like Google Places or go to your bank account or go to the library's homepage, things like that. The three major browsers that you have to choose from are Microsoft Edge, which comes installed on all Windows 10 computers, Google Chrome, which I'm using right now, and Mozilla Firefox. They're all good options. Which ones you use are totally up to you. If you want to just use Edge because it comes with the computer, that's fine. But we use Chrome here at the library, so that's what I'm going to show you. They all look very similar, so don't worry too much about getting confused if you switch back and forth between them. So in a web browser, you have choices between using Windows, like we talked about before, and tabs. In Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Mozilla Firefox, you'll see tabs at the very top of your screen. So I have one open right now, the Frank L. Weinberg Library's homepage. If I wanted to open a second one, I could click on the little plus symbol, and that would open another one. And then I can use this tab to go to a different site, and I can click back and forth between them freely. So I can see at a glance everything that I have open up here in the tab bar. If I wanted to open a second window of Google Chrome, I could do that by clicking on the menu icon all the way over on the right side here, which is these three dots. And then I can say New Window. And again, remember, windows layer on top of each other. So from here I can minimize this to get back to the other window. I can make it smaller. I can hit the X. Or I can click on Google Chrome down here in the taskbar and click on any of the other options. So if I was here and I wanted to go back to the Weinberg Library page, I would just click on it. And now I'm back. When it comes to navigating around the internet, you do that by taking advantage of this URL bar up at the top of the screen. So right now it says flwlib.org. That tells me I'm on the Frank L. Weinberg Library's website. If I wanted to go somewhere else, I can either type in a specific address. So if I switch to my new tab, if I wanted to go to Frank L. Weinberg Library, I would type in flwlib.org, and I can hit enter, and it'll take me straight there. But if I don't know the direct link, if I wasn't sure if it was flwlib.org or .com or something else, I could also click into this URL bar and then start typing Frank L. Weinberg Library, hit enter, and that will do a Google search for the library, and then I can see this first option is my best one. And this is flwlib.org. If I click through, looks pretty legit. It's a good rule of thumb generally if you're searching for a website. Before you click on it, take a look at the URL, make sure that it makes sense for what you're looking at. If it's some kind of gobbledygook, or if you're trying to get to Amazon.com and the first result you find is not Amazon.com, you shouldn't click on it because it may be misleading you and trying to take you somewhere you don't actually want to be. If there are websites that you tend to visit a lot, you might want to bookmark them. And to do that, you would find the little star up near the top right corner of the screen. If you click on it, you can give the bookmark a name and you can decide where to put it. Your bookmarks bar is this bar right at the top of the screen. So if I put this in my bookmarks bar, I could then just go up and click on it and get there right away. Then I could say done, and if I wanted to get rid of it, I would click on the star again and say remove, and it would disappear. Now, I would be remiss talking about the internet if I didn't talk about safety also. So there are unfortunate people out in the world who create programs that are designed to damage your computer, steal your data, hijack your identity, and things like that. One key way that you have of protecting yourself against those people and those things is your antivirus software. Windows 10 comes with the Windows Security module installed, and it does a really good job of keeping you safe. It has what's called a firewall to block anything incoming that looks dangerous, and it can run virus scans and threat scans and other security measures to check and make sure that you haven't been infected with anything recently. There are other options for antivirus programs. Almost all of them are subscription services, so you have to pay either a monthly or a yearly fee. You might have heard of Norton, McAfee, Symantec. You might have. Windows Security is going to do the job, really. If you want to be extra safe, you can pay for one of those other services, but generally Windows Security is just fine. There are also steps that you can take personally to ensure that you are safe online. One of those is when you are looking at your email, don't open messages from people you don't recognize, from email addresses that are new to you, especially if they're trying to talk to you like they know you. If you do open an email from someone you don't recognize, and it's a very generic message, something like, click here to do this, or can you tell us your credit card number, or can you tell us your account information, don't click on any of the links, and don't click on any attachments. Because once you click on a link or an attachment in an email, you could be opening up a program that will then install a virus or some kind of malware or something else unpleasant on your computer. If you get an email from someplace like your bank or somewhere that has sensitive information of yours, and they're asking you to put that sensitive information in writing, like they email you and say, hey, can you confirm your password? It's almost certainly not legitimate, and you should instead call that location, call your bank, and say, I got this message asking for my password. Is this a real thing? To make sure that it's legitimate. Because if it isn't, and you email someone your password or other identifying information, they can use it against you. When you're navigating the internet generally, if you get a pop-up, if something opens on your screen that you weren't expecting to see, don't click on it. Don't click on anything within the screen. If you can find an X up at the top corner to close it, click on that. Just close it. If you're going around in your web browser and you're taken to a page that says something about you having a virus or your computer has been compromised, it's probably not real. It's almost certainly not real, in fact. You will get notices from Windows Security and from Norton and McAfee about viruses and vulnerabilities on your computer through little pop-ups that will come up in the bottom right corner of your screen. They will not appear in Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Mozilla Firefox. It's just not how it works. So if you see a site like that, if you're taken to a screen like that, no matter how angry it looks, and no matter how scary it is, again, look for the X and just close it, click away. If you're not sure something is legitimate, so for example, if I get an email from someone I don't recognize and they say, hey, click on this and you can see my Facebook pictures, you can mouse over the link to see where it goes. So keep an eye on this bottom left-hand corner down here. If I mouse over YouTube, in the bottom left corner, I get a little gray preview of the place that's going to take me. So I moused over YouTube and the preview says youtube.com. That matches up. That's legitimate. In my example, if someone had sent me an email and said, here, click on this so you can see my Facebook stuff, and then I moused over it and it said facebook.com, it's probably an actual thing. I would still be wary of clicking on it because I don't know the person, but I would be less concerned if it said facebook.com than I would be if I moused over it and it just said gobbledygook. If it's gobbledygook, it's probably not real. So if you're nervous about clicking on something, try to preview the link and see where it's going to take you. If a pop-up opens or you wind up somewhere strange on the internet and you can't get away, you can try to get out of it by opening up the Task Manager, which you can do by right-clicking on the Start menu in the bottom left corner and then clicking on Task Manager. And that will show you a list of the things that are currently running on your computer. So in this case, if Google Chrome was frozen or I had a pop-up and I couldn't get rid of it, I could click on Google Chrome and say End Task, and it would close it. And then once I reopened it, it would start fresh, and that pop-up and everything would be gone. If your computer gets stuck on a pop-up or freezes, and you can't get into the Task Manager, and you can't move your mouse to open the Start menu or turn the computer off or anything, you can push and hold the power button on the computer down for 10 seconds. Once the screen turns black, wait another 10 seconds, and then push the power button again to restart. Hopefully that will reset whatever you're doing. If after that things are still wonky, your cursor won't move right, things are typing themselves, your computer's being really strange and slow, you're getting bizarre pop-ups, open your antivirus program, whether that's Windows Security or something else, and do a virus scan, usually by clicking on Virus and Threat Protection. And then you can run a scan and see what's going on. Worst case scenario, if you really can't figure it out and there's no viruses, you might need to talk to a professional and figure out what's happening. So now to wrap us up, the very last thing that I want to talk about is apps and programs in more detail. So I said before that you can access all of the apps on your computer by clicking on the Start menu. And again, they are organized alphabetically. If you want to install a new app or program, go into the Microsoft Store, which is in the Start menu under M for Microsoft Store. This is a bunch of different apps, including games and movies and things like that have been vetted by Microsoft and almost guaranteed to be safe and trustworthy. There are some illegitimate ones that slip through the cracks occasionally, but for the most part, anything you find in the store is trustworthy and you can download it. Some things are free, some things cost money. Games often cost money, movies often cost money, even some apps do, and you will be notified before you try to download it that that is the case. Some things can be downloaded for free, but then once you're in them, they have in-app purchases. So for example, there's a game here listed, Phantasy Star Online, with it says free, but there's a little plus symbol. That means that you can play this, but at various times they're going to ask you to pay for extra levels or extra options, or, oh, you can only play this for so long every day unless you give us money, and things like that. So that is something to watch out for. I'm going to do a search, which I do by clicking on search in the top right corner of the screen. And I'm going to search for Netflix. And as I do that, I get a drop down of suggestions that I might want to choose. This is the actual one I want, but I'm not going to click on it right now. If I wanted to go ahead and just jump to it, I could click on it from here. Or I can click the magnifying glass to do the search and see all of the options that I get. This option is the one that I want, so I'm going to click on it. And then I can see more about it. I can see that it's available for the computer. It is free, and there's no in-app purchases or anything because there's no asterisk here. If I decided I wanted to go ahead and get this, I could say get. I'm being prompted to sign in, but you do not have to. So just say no thanks. And then Netflix will begin to download and install. So now Netflix is installed. From here I can say launch and go ahead and open it up. Or I can go into the Start menu. I can click Start, scroll down to N for Netflix, and then if I just clicked on it right there, it would open up. Now that I have Netflix installed, I can put it in various places on the computer to make it a little bit easier to access. If I want to drop it on the desktop, I can click and hold down on it and pull it over onto the desktop, drag it around till I decide where I want it, and then let it go. And now that Netflix is here, I can double click on it anytime to open it and access the movies and TV shows. I can also, if I right click on it, delete it. And that doesn't delete the app, it just deletes the shortcut, which has actually dropped into my recycling bin, which I can tell if I double click on it. There it is. But, as we'll see if I go back into my Start menu, Netflix is still here. Now from here, I can also pin Netflix to the taskbar by right-clicking on it, mousing over More, and saying Pin to Taskbar. You see it appeared down here. Now I can click and drag it to move it closer or farther away from the Start menu. And then if I wanted to use it, I would just click on it and it would open up. And just like before, if I right-click on it, I can say Unpin from Taskbar and it will disappear. Finally, getting back into the Start menu, I can pin this to the Start menu itself, so that anytime I open the Start menu, it will show up on the right-hand side here. So I'm going to right-click on it, click on Pin to Start. There it is. Again, just like with the desktop and the taskbar, I can click and drag and move it around. And I can right-click. I can resize it, make it bigger. Or I can say Unpin from Start, and it's gone. If at any point I decide I don't need Netflix anymore, I can locate it in the Start menu, right-click on it, and say Uninstall. And it's warning me this will be uninstalled. Yep, that's fine. Uninstall. And now it is gone. So that is Windows 10. There is a handout for this program. It's in the description below. Please feel free to take a look at it. If you have questions, my contact information is at the end of the handout. My email is there. Again, my name is Beth, and I would love to talk to you about it, so please feel free to email me. At the beginning of August, I will see you right back here for a presentation about RB Digital, which is an app you can use to access audiobooks for free from home with your library card. See you then.